Welcome everyone to episode 33 of the Thundercraps podcast, where we forge through the shitstorm that was WCW Thunder. I am your host, the epitome of evolution of man, an impenetrable fortress of flesh, and the object of fan worship worldwide, Josh Kaiser. And joining me today, a pig of a man, an out-of-shape, overweight loser, Kyle Hoagland.
Who the hell said that about me? What's going on, everybody? Who was actually? You know what? I'm curious. What was that? Alex Wright?
That was Alex Wright talking about Tony Schiavone.
That's right.
And then continuing to talk about the rest of the fan base and how they're rest of just fat, lazy Americans. You know, typical European heel promo.
Oh, absolutely.
How's it going? How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing all right. I feel like I watched this episode 4 or 5 days ago, and then I told myself I would write notes later. I kind of just wanted to watch it like a fan for once. I want to take a different approach to watching the show. And like usually, what I do is I watch the show, I pause it countless times, and I just feel like that really breaks. I don't know what it is. It just kind of like breaks the excitement. I feel like I might judge things a little bit differently if what I'm doing is just nitpicking by pausing. So I watch it the whole way through, and then I will write as many notes as I can, and then I'll watch it again, and I'll see if it's kind of like, if you go see like a movie, like I'll make a good example. It's kind of like how like you would go see like Episode 8 of Star Wars or something like that, and the first time you see it, you kind of go there and you're there to watch it and enjoy it as much as you can as a movie fan, and then whether you liked it or not, I feel like the second time you go is when you try to catch the things that maybe you didn't catch the first time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, you have different expectations going in the first time. You're watching it with different eyes. The second time you're watching it, you know the general consensus of what happens. In this case, you know who's going to win the match. You know what's going to happen, if anyone's going to come out. And then you can kind of like look at things differently. You know, what happened in the match, right? Like what are the little nuances that take place or what, that kind of thing. So I get what you're saying. That said, it is Thunder 33. It is September 24th, 1998. Kyle, we are 1 month away from Halloween Havoc. And there's no hurricanes, just thunder here in Norfolk, Virginia. And we are live, so it's good to see that we are live again. And then naturally, of course, Lee Marshall, Bobby Heenan, and Tony Schiavone is our normal commentating group. And they're discussing DDP and Goldberg, so our main event at Halloween Havoc. And Schiavone also lets us know that we have some great matchups tonight here on Thunder. So they move into the booth to discuss a little bit more what's going on here. They let us know that Ric Flair and the Horsemen are here, despite Arn Anderson losing that arm wrestling match last week. The Horsemen are going to be present. And Lee Marshall kind of gives us the old history lesson saying, Ric Flair and General MacArthur both said, "I shall return." And that's what they're doing here in Norfolk. And one thing I noticed here, Kyle, I talk about signs of the week or every week, right? There's always signs in the crowd, but I felt like this shot when the commentary team is being, they got the camera on the three of them while they're discussing things behind them. I felt like it was Attitude Era signs. I mean, just plastered everywhere. I thought the crowd was hot here at the beginning. The Goldberg chants were loud. And then after the Goldberg chants quieted down, they let us know that Goldberg and Canyon will be wrestling tonight. And then, of course, we got the "We Want Flair" chants. We are in Horseman country. And as we get the "We Want Flair" chants, that's when Heenan says, of course, the fans here want Goldberg.
Dude, that's the first thing I wrote in my notes. Like that, I just laughed. He's like, "Well, you can hear from the crowds. They want Goldberg." I'm like, I think he's like he had a thought when he wanted to talk, and then they moved on to something else, and he just didn't want to move on. So, yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was. But we will move on into our opening bout. We got Hugh Morris rocking. Apparently, him and Marty Jannetty went and got haircuts. So they got it back on TV for opening bouts. Hugh Morris, of course, accompanied to the ring by Jimmy Hart, wrestling the dog-faced gremlin Rick Steiner. So it's good to see Hugh Morris and Rick Steiner, Kyle, two people we have not seen on Thunder in a little bit of time.
Yeah, and Hugh Morris rocking the crew cut, and Rick Steiner with new music. So it's just two new look wrestlers,
fresh looks here. Yeah.
Yep.
One great moment in this match is Jimmy Hart plays a manager quite well, and Rick Steiner's going to deck Jimmy Hart on the apron, and Jimmy Hart, most managers would kind of flop or fly off the apron to the outside. He just laid dead, just like he went limp. That said, Jimmy Hart is going to get back up, and this is going to lead to Hugh Morris getting. Rick's going to get back into Jimmy's face and threaten him. He's going to clothesline Hugh Morris outside. Hugh Morris is going to get back in. Next thing you know, Rick Steiner is going to the top rope, and Hugh Morris is walking backwards and stopping in a perfect position to get the Bulldog executed on him. I give this a 1.5 because that ending was just, you couldn't have been more blatantly obvious that you were setting yourself up to take a Bulldog.
I almost gave it that. I gave it a 1.75, and I think the reason why is because I just love Jimmy Hart. Jimmy Hart is he's like the Conan of managers, where he always knows where the camera is. He tries to get as much TV time as he possibly can. I just lost it when the moment that Rick Steiner did one move, like the first move that he did to Hugh Morris, and Jimmy Hart's right on the apron immediately. Like he had no faith in his guy whatsoever. And it was also just like funny that Heenan was hilarious in this. I think they were talking about how Rick Steiner, he kind of was hesitating to hit Jimmy Hart a second time, and Tony was like, you know what, you shouldn't hesitate, you should just deck him. And Heenan's like, hey, I don't agree with you, but you're right. Which I just thought was really funny. I didn't think it was a bad match. It was a little slow for my taste for a kickoff match. And also, I also mentioned the way that Hugh Morris just kind of walks backwards into the Bulldog, which is kind of a sad way for the ending. Yeah,
he walks back and then just stops, and he's kind of turning around like it's coming. It was, this could have been at best a 2-star match, if everything else was executed okay. But to me, the way that ending fell, it was just terrible.
Yeah, I can go with that.
And then after the match, Rick Steiner, of course, the babyface, heading to Halloween Havoc with his match against Scott, is going to punch a security guard, which I don't know what that was about. Commentary team thought it was hilarious, yet had Hugh Morris done it, they would have said what a scoundrel and bastard he was for attacking an official.
And said they're like, oh, Rick, he's a wild man.
Yeah, but I don't get, why did he attack a security guard?
The first thing I thought, because I didn't notice that was a security guard, I thought someone jumped the rail, and I didn't know if maybe Rick thought that too. And he was walking, he just saw somebody on the other side of the railing that he didn't recognize, so he just went after him. or once again, if you hear a lot of the stories about professional wrestlers and stuff, when they go down to the ring and they get in the ring, they're jacked, and when they leave the ring, they're still in that mode, and then they have to go in the back and almost take downers just so they can function in society, because they can't go to dinner after a show without taking something to get that edge off of them, or else they're going to go to a nice steak restaurant or something like that with everybody else and just be jacked, and you just don't want that. And I think that's just Rick being in character way too long.
Yeah, it was weird nonetheless. After this, we'll get our first replay of the night. And it's going to be from Nitro, where Hogan is telling the Warrior to give him back the Disciple. Of course, the Warrior has kidnapped the Disciple. And then Hogan says, let's finish what we started 8 years ago. After this, we get our next match of the night. Nick Dinsmore making his return to Thunder here. I think this is 2 weeks in a row now, as he'll be wrestling Ernest the Cat Miller. The commentary team is talking about how Ernest is been going around calling himself the greatest. Which they reference, taking the words from Muhammad Ali. And Lee Marshall, of course, says, I totally expected after hearing the greatest to be followed by Bandini, which I guess is almost like Houdini, like the great Houdini, but the great Bandini. Classically Marshall stuff right there. And then he also gives us a little bit of, when you don't have Mike Tenay there to drop the wrestling knowledge, thank God we got Lee Marshall, because Ernest Miller was holding up 3 fingers, which Lee Marshall astutely lets us know, Kyle, is not a reference to the 4 Horsemen, but in fact to how many times Ernest Miller has been a karate champion.
So we've gotten corrections. I think at the beginning of the show we had him talking about Douglas MacArthur, a 5-star general in World War II. Once again, I just miss Lee Marshall. He needs to be on for the whole hour and a half. Or I guess 2 hours according to TV.
Right. After this, we'll get our first sign of the night, and it says, I love clutch, which means nothing.
Bullshit, dude. I think you're making up that sign.
Dude, I'm telling you, go to this match and look. It's like dead on middle of the screen. The guy actually holds it up for most of the show. But I'm really writing that because in 1998, on every fantasy wrestling website and forum and stuff where you could either have a wrestler or create a wrestler, I created a Diesel knockoff called Clutch. So this is obviously one of my super fans out there. So shout out to that fan.
I mean, this is 98. I mean, I think this is when Clutch was probably in his prime.
Clutch was world champion, dude. What can I say? That said, Ernest Cat Miller is going to win with his Irish whip out of the corner into a roundhouse kick for the 3 count. I gave it 2 stars. I thought for a squash match it was okay.
1.5 stars. Are you really going to, with a straight face, tell me that Nick Dinsmore versus the Cat gave you, in your heart of hearts, a 2-star match?
I think Nick Dinsmore versus Ernest the Cat Miller on Thunder 33 on September 24th, 1998, gave me a Thunder 2-star squash match. Yes.
Here's my problem with that. To me, a 2-star match, even if it's a squash, I do enjoy the Cat. Don't get me wrong. He is capable of giving me 2 stars without having a match. With that said, there was a match, and this. I mean, both of our notes. It's like you literally just wrote down round kick, off the ropes for a 3. He didn't even do the feliner. If he hit the feliner, I would have given him.
He's got 2 finishers. He's got the feliner and he's got this thing. So this is his other move.
That's his fault. All right, he has the feliner. Don't give me some bullshit. Kind of like Trouble in Paradise. Kofi Kingston looking kick. It doesn't even look that good. But I don't know. It's once again, it's Nick Dinsmore versus the Cat. He hit him with kind of like a spinning kick that I think I've seen before done by other wrestlers, and yet for some reason this was enough to take down the great
Nick Dinsmore. Because other wrestlers aren't 3-time karate champions.
Oh God! When you're right. Fine. I'm still sticking with the 1.5 stars though.
Fair enough. After this, we'll get our second sign of the night, and it says Hall equals alcohol.
I actually saw a sign earlier that said alcohol and then was spelled Hall. I'm like, that was kind of clever.
Much more clever than this one. And then we'll get our Saturday night promo of the week. It's 2 hours, and we got British Bulldog, Jim the Animal Neidhart, and Stevie Ray will all be there. And then our next match of the night, we got the Cruiserweight Psychosis going up against the non-Cruiserweight Saturn. And the reason I'm specifying that is for a later match. But
thank you for catching that. By the
way, during this match, of course, a lot of it's going to be discussed about Hulk Hogan and Warrior, their rematch here at Halloween Havoc. And as for this match, it was something. Early on, Saturn kind of dominates. He gets his cryonic kick on Psychosis, and this is going to bring out Lodi. Of course, Saturn has recently freed the flock. And Lodi said basically Saturn has ruined his life by freeing him from Raven.
And freeing him from any storyline or angle he could ever have.
It's a fair point.
It is.
Saturn, of course, going to get distracted. This leads to Psychosis doing a flip to the outside. Originally, I thought it was going to lead to a Saturn countout, but it does not. So then I thought, maybe it's going to lead to a Saturn loss. It does not. Lodi then leaves, and it seems like the distraction was short-lived. Psychosis is going to miss his guillotine leg drop going to the outside. And then Saturn is going to do a variation of a frog splash off the top rope, or what you call just a normal splash off the top rope. And that's a 1-2 kick out 3. That's your match. Psychosis, Saturn, and the referee are all confused. The commentary team is confused. They ended the match on a splash, something Saturn doesn't win his matches by. I give this a 1.75 stars from the Lodi weirdness leaving, the fucked up ending. I thought this match was actually all right. I probably would have rated it about 2.25 if it was like a Death Valley Driver ending or something. But it wasn't. It was bad, and a 1.75 stars for me.
I agree. I gave it a 1.75 stars as well. Too many obvious poor spots. Not to mention, it's clear that Psychosis kicked out of the splash. And it's just one of those things where Saturn's the top rope splash is not a finishing move of Saturn's. All right, this is not something that anybody thought, probably in the crowd or us, or Saturn or Psychosis.
Yeah, literally no one.
So, and I think it just comes down to poor chemistry between the two. I mean, you can just see throughout the whole match. There was a lot of times that I think when they were getting Irish whipped into the ropes, I think both of them kind of didn't have an idea what to do with each other. And I think Lodi was actually a good part of the match because I think that kind of broke that part of the match up of them, trying to wrestle each other.
Or something.
Yeah, so I think it was a good reset. So Lodi was probably help this match a little bit, have some offense on the outside, have everything kind of hit a crescendo, because whatever they were trying to do in the ring up until that point was it didn't look like the chemistry was well. I created a GIF that I'm sure I'll share on our Twitter of Psychosis delivering probably one of the shittiest scoop slams I've ever seen in my life on the outside on the apron to Saturn. It looked like hot garbage.
I did see your GIF there, and yep, it was pretty bad.
So I do agree with what you said too, though. But I do maybe it's not so much a disagreement, but I know you were kind of like that was kind of a weird thing for Lodi to kind of like show up, do a distraction, and then think he was done. He just kind of just left.
I don't. I'm of the mindset if you're going to distract in the match, it should have a result.
It should have staying power.
It should have something, not give Psychosis a little bit of an edge for a minute and then just leave. Like I just didn't think that was enough resolution from that, I guess. Well,
especially considering that Saturn wins the match. So you would think that, Lodi tries to help, and then when Saturn makes that comeback, you would think like Lodi's getting on the apron and trying again or doing something to get away again.
He's not even
Maybe he gets leveled, but he just disappears.
Yeah, it was weird. After this match, we get our Goldberg promo. And it's basically it's a bunch of shots of Goldberg and doing spears and jackhammers with every commentary man basically blowing Goldberg in different ways.
Well, I think it's also funny is that Tony lets us know right before the promo that we're about to hear from the following men, the Horsemen, and then they cut to a Goldberg promo, and then they come back and even Tony's like, "Well, that wasn't the promo I thought we were going to show," but. And then they played Saturn's entrance music just for whatever fucking reason. Why not? Why not?
Yeah, there was some bad production and on this show in general. That said, Tony is going to follow this up, standing at the entrance ramp. His next guy coming out will be Alex Wright. So Alex Wright's getting a little promo here. He's going to get on the microphone, talk a little German. That's when he realizes that Tony Schiavone doesn't understand German and tells him he's stupid and to get out of here. Then he calls him fat and overweight, like all you stupid fat Americans here in the crowd. He says Europeans are much better athletes, and then he proceeds to say he's the greatest European champion, which I feel like is D'Lo Brown, but maybe that's just a personal opinion.
He is probably one of the greatest European champions to ever live.
And then he calls out all the European wrestlers, Fit Finlay, I'm blanking on the other ones.
Norman Smiley,
there you go. Yeah.
And British Bulldog.
And British Bulldog, yeah, calls them out, says that they can't hold a candle to the talent that is Alex Wright. And this is where we're going to see our third sign of the night. It says "Shut up and wrestle," RASSELL. So, just made me.
That's not even close to spelling it correctly, but.
And then Kyle, we're going to get our Four Horsemen promo, which is basically classic '90s video effects showing all of the Horsemen. Malenko, Benoit, Flair, Mongo, and Arn. Being
a bit heelish, don't you think? Like I feel like that whole promo was like them like attacking people in the back and like just being. And once again, I know that they're kind of supposed to be like, hey, we don't wear white hats around here. We're not always nice guys, but it just didn't seem like if they're going to be kind of like the face stable that's going to take on the NWO or take on Bischoff. The promo doesn't make them seem like they're very righteous people.
No, that's a good point. And another non-righteous man is Barbarian, who will be wrestling in this next match, accompanied to the ring by Jimmy Hart, the ever-busy Jimmy Hart tonight, wrestling Fit Finlay. So good to see Barbarian and Fit here. We haven't seen either of them in a little bit. We're also getting our fourth sign of the night. It says we will wrestle for beer. Could be Scott Hall. I'm not confirmed on that, but
I feel like Scott Hall. If Scott Hall was really in that position to write signs, I don't think it would have been, because the sign actually was not bad penmanship, and also I feel like for everything that he comes down to the ring with, it looks like he's always drinking like some sort of cocktail.
Yeah, like a Long Island or a rum and coke or something to that effect. Yeah,
right.
Of course, Fit Finley's in the match, which leads Lee Marshall to make a comment about how Fit is better suited wrestling in a bar or a back alley.
Which I think that's 5 out of 5 of the matches that Lee Marshall mentions that
every time. Speaking of Scott Hall, Kyle, he's going to actually come stumbling out, holding one of those drinks we just referred to. He's going to get onto the commentary booth, and he's going to get on a headset. And he speaks very well here for a guy who should be a slurring drunk. Basically says that Nash made a match for the two of them at Halloween Havoc, and says that Nash is not his boss, and that he won't be having this match against Nash. And then he says, you know what, though? I am mean when I drink, and lately I've been drinking all the time. So that's kind of his little segment. After that, we do have still a little bit more of this match, which has actually been a very good match, but you're so distracted by the Scott Hall coming out, talking on the commentary team, that you miss most of it. There was a great part where Barbarian does like a gorilla press slam and like drops Fit all the way down onto his knee. Jimmy Hart, of course, is going to have to get in as a distraction at some point. Of course, this is going to backfire, and then a tombstone pile driver for the 3 count for Fit Finley. I gave the match 2 stars. I think it was match of the night, and I probably would have rated it higher, but the whole Hall distraction was really hard to kind of overlook this.
And don't you think that's kind of interesting that this was probably one of the better worked matches, yet this was the one match that they decided that it was going to be a throwaway and have Hall, come out?
I understand. I guess on paper, I get why this was chosen, just because it's like the two of them have nothing to fight for right now. Like, there's no story going on. You're not pushing one of them at the moment, so I get why they're like, do that. But these two put on a great match. I mean, you look back up, Psychosis and Saturn, that match wasn't great, but I understand why you're not going to have Hall interrupt that, because you're trying to tell the whole Saturn Lodi deal there.
And plus, there's more to watch. I mean, but both of them are capable of more eye-opening offense.
So then you go back and you're like, okay, you got Ernest Miller and Dinsmore. Well, the Cat's in a squash match, so you can't really take away from that. Okay, so we'll move to Hugh Morris and Rick Steiner. That one, I guess you could have picked, but that's your opening bout, so maybe. And
it's also a match that's going to last about a minute and a half, so you're not going to. These guys will actually put on a 4 to 5 minute match.
Yeah. So I get why they chose it. It just kind of sucks because it was an enjoyable match.
Yep, and I noticed it as well. I gave it 2 stars, about as good of a match as these two could do, considering that most of the match wasn't even focused on them, but either on Scott Hall talking or the commentary talking about what Scott Hall just said. So that was unfortunate. I was very impressed with the offense by both of them, because we have seen many matches with the Barbarian where there's not much to him. Where it's basically
surprised me in this match.
Yeah, he actually he kind of carried a lot of this match, and once again, Fit Finley is definitely capable of putting on a good match as well. And I think both of them just wanted to go out there and kind of earn their money, which was, like I said, was a kind of a breath of fresh air, because it just didn't. I went into this match just thinking that Barbarian was going to no-sell most of Fit Finley's moves, and then at some point, maybe if Finley does win, it'll just be basically him taking a bunch of chops and slaps and a couple of kicks, and then Jimmy Hart. Well, I think I saw the ending was very classic Barbarian losing, because it's Jimmy Hart trying to get himself on TV.
Oh, absolutely.
Again.
Yep.
But the fact that Barbarian and Finley actually had pretty good chemistry in the match, despite the crowd chanting boring chants, which I felt bad for, because this actually was a pretty good match.
That pissed me off. And I don't know if it was necessarily the crowd, or at least like it felt like it was like one dude who was yelling it really loud.
There's a couple matches where I think one dude in the crowd is just trying to get a boring chant going.
Yep.
I think we see it a couple matches later. We get another one of them trying to do it.
After this match, we had our Goldberg versus DDP promo, and this felt like it was brought to you by the team who does all the graphics for WCW Saturday Night. Basically, just talking about the Diamond Cutter versus Goldberg streak.
Did you notice that they reused that shitty ass DDP Diamond Cutter on the
I saw you say
table?
that, and I must have looked down on when I was typing or something like that, so I didn't notice it. But it's just so sad that that's such a terrible Diamond Cutter that they continue to use in promo packages.
It really is unfortunate. It's something that happened like 6 months ago at this point,
yep.
And if not longer. And we've got better diamond cutters, all right? We really, really do.
Yes, we absolutely do. After this, Tony Schiavone is going to be in the ring, which only means one thing. He must be interviewing DDP, because DDP seems to be the only one that gets the Schiavone in-ring treatment. DDP, of course, is going to work the Hollywood scum Hogan into his discussion on his match against Goldberg.
Why?
I don't know, but Hogan must be in his head, because then he wants to say at Halloween Havoc, but instead he says at Halloween. He's about to say at Halloween Hogan.
I think he said at Hollywood.
Yeah,
and then he did it twice actually in this thing. He said the wrong thing and then kind of like looks to the side like which I think is what like if you're kind of a veteran wrestling, if you kind of screw up your live spot, you kind of like look to the crowd just to kind of like. He's kind of faking the fact that like someone in the crowd is chanting his name or saying something, so he's letting the crowd kind of like be part of the moment. So he pauses for a moment. He did this like twice during this thing, and I think we have said during times DDP either can bust out a pretty good memorable promo, or sometimes he gets so ahead of himself. Like once again, he is a like medicated. Attention deficit disorder guy. Like he is diagnosed as having that, and he was at a point where I think he was talking slower than his brain was going, and so I think his brain was thinking 2 sentences ahead, and it kind of messed him up.
Yeah, this was not a good interview for him at all. And, he is going to quickly wrap it up and say, you're going to feel the bang. And Lee Marshall lets us know that he is the people's choice, which is not
correct at all.
But Lee was just red hot tonight.
I think at this point, Lee's like, all right, I think his hour is just about up. I think they all looked at it like, oh, God, we're losing him. Get Tenay out there. Which then lets you know that it really was like if it was really bad. I've learned this about wrestling and just real injuries. If there's a real legit concerning injury, they won't do that. They won't be like, hey, look, watch this guy's career end. Like they're usually a little bit more respectable about that. I think the guys in the back, especially the talent, like if they found out that like that screw up cost Villano for either his life or he was paralyzed or his career is now officially over, that would be something that they would not want to show on TNT or TBS. It's like, hey, watch our talent destroy someone else. Hey, at the same time, just in the middle of the Monday Night Wars, people were trying to sign, the best talent. I think the last thing you want to do is constantly show, something that was, it doesn't, to this day, it doesn't look good. Like from this, it does not age well. So, because we know now that, and also they knew then because they later say that, I guess Villano 4 has a fucking like tree trunk of a neck because he was just out for like a week and a half.
Yeah, they let us know he's got only minor neck damage thanks to his thick neck, and he could be wrestling in a week or so. So yeah, obviously, and they knew, to your point, had he been paralyzed, had he been hurt, you wouldn't have seen this replay like you did, but you did. So we get a revenge match as Villano 5 is going to come out and take care of Raven, who's going to be accompanied to the ring by Canyon. And this is where Tenay's going to let us know this match is all about venganza, which must be the word for vengeance.
Wait, who the hell said this?
This was Tenay.
This sounded like I didn't recognize what you said, and I'm like, this just sounds like something Lee Marshall would say. Can you imagine if Lee Marshall and Mike Tenay were like a 2-man group, like the sleepy time tea of commentating if it was the two of them calling the shots?
It would be something to be seen. That said, Raven is going to cut a promo here saying he's been treated about how he being Raven has been treated unfairly and poorly his whole life, and then tells Villano 5, I hurt your brother Monday and I'm going to hurt you tonight. The best part of commentary here was Heenan talking about the Villanos and how all of them sit around in their mask eating popcorn, which Tony Schiavone just replies with, I hate you. Raven, of course, it becomes Raven's rules. He's going to bring a chair into the ring, which he knows a drop toe hold is incoming. And naturally it is, and a quick even flow, so the venganza is short-lived as Raven squashes Villano 5. I gave it a star and 3/4. I thought it was a pretty standard squash match, but I felt like it was a little insulting to Villano 5.
I can see that, but once again, if you thought Villano 5 was going to have any shot at beating Raven, then you're just straight up delusional. The one thing I gave us 2 stars, and the main reason why was because I was just glad that Canyon didn't insert himself in this match. He easily could have. That definitely it would sound more like Raven's MO is having somebody else like do his dirty work, even though he's more than capable of going in there and winning a match for himself. So that was if at any point like Canyon like hit him with a chair or just some outside interference, I would have bumped this down a bit just because I think that's, and then once again, no disrespect to any of the 35 Villanos out there. I felt that would have been beneath Raven to have somebody help him win a match against Villano 5.
No, I know what you're saying, but it was just funny when you have this revenge match that he just gets totally squashed.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that there's no continuation of that story.
Oh, I'm sure not. After this, we're going to get our third replay of the night, and this is how Warrior is now discussing the Disciple and how he's up. I think this is where they're up in the rafters. The Disciple is, on his knees, knocked out or something, and the Warrior lets us know that the Disciple has not yet been instilled with the power of the Warriors just yet. And then our next match is going to be Disco Inferno versus Chavo Guerrero Jr. And this is where we're going to get our 5th sign of the night, and it says Pepe, the 5th Horseman, which made me laugh. And then Kyle, you put in your notes here something about the Thunder Girl. What are you talking about there?
So the match starts out really, really fast. Like they both get in the ring. The bell doesn't even ring yet. I think Disco Inferno throws Chavo out of the ring, and then as Chavo's trying to get back in the ring, there's like this girl that's it's like kind of like on the floor, walking away, and it almost looked like a Nitro Girl, or just looked like. I don't know. I don't know what else to compare him to other than like if you have like a MotoGP or girl or something like that, or someone that like holds the signs up, a ring girl or something like that. And she was she had like on like I would say like Daisy Dukes and a Thunder t-shirt, and I was just like, oh, that was weird. I don't think anyone's supposed to see her, so it was just like. And the thing is, I'm sure they're there every week. We just never see them.
It's probably more for the live crowd, like commercial breaks.
I definitely agree.
And stuff like that. Yeah.
I just realized that my notes said Saturn versus Chavo Guerrero because I was still laughing at the fact that Heenan excellently called Raven Saturn during the replay. And so I wrote Saturn versus Chavo Guerrero.
I'm so glad you said that. I forgot to mention. So that might have been one of my favorite parts of the entire match. Is during the replay. Of course, they usually let Heenan do the recap here, but instead it's Heenan and Schiavone just bantering back and forth, and I can't do it any justice. I would say this is one of the few moments that you just need to go back and watch this replay called. And then, Schiavone's just so frustrated with Heenan, and then he goes, and there's your winner, Saturn. But no, it was a pretty great moment there. That said, back to the Disco Chavo match, they let us know that Disco Inferno has apparently slimmed down. He is now a cruiserweight. And they're talking about the effort that it takes to do that, to shed those pounds. And they also
we gave Disco shit back in the day when we first started watching him in like late '95, where he a little bit of a chunk. So the fact that in '98 Disco does look good, give him credit where credit is due. He definitely got himself into shape.
Yes, he did. They let us know during the match that Scott Norton has been wrestling over in Japan and has won the IWGP Championship. He's only the 3rd American wrestler to win such a title, Hogan being one of the other 2. Of course, Scott Norton is just basically a jabroni here in the NWO, so it's kind of sad that he's so revered over there and continues to just do nothing over here. Kyle, you did a little fact-checking on that IWGP Championship. Do you want to elaborate at all on that?
So the only reason why I had to look it up was because the moment when Tenay's like, Scott Norton was only the 3rd American to win the title, joining, the ranks of Hulk Hogan. And I'm sitting there like, so who's the 3rd guy, Tenay? Who's the 3rd man, Tenay?
Hogan is the 3rd man, so that's...
I guess that's all you need to know. So I simple Google search lets you know that the 2nd guy to win it was Big Van Vader, or Vader, as we probably know him. And it's interesting that I guess it was interesting to me when I talked to you about it. It wasn't very surprising to you that they felt it was unnecessary to mention Vader.
If they're not current WCW superstars at this era, like, it doesn't seem like they care at all. You know, he left in bad terms. They burned. You know, it was kind of a bad breakup between them. But also, he's not here in WCW. They're probably just not. You know, he's just no longer discussed or mentioned. So no, it doesn't surprise me that Vader's is intentionally ignored here.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I thought was interesting was it took me a while to find out that Hogan actually had won the IWGP title because from what I've seen, the current iteration of the IWGP title, or belt, if you will, started in 1987. So Hogan, before then, I believe they had like a yearly tournament to decide who would be the IWGP Championship. Think of it like the Super Bowl or something like that, where they would have it in the Tokyo Dome for the finals for the IWGP title. And Hogan won it in 1983. So in that regard, yes, he is a champion. But it's also one of those things where the very next year, he might not have even been in the company, and he wouldn't be there to defend his title. He's invited because he's the current, or he is the last champion. So I think he gets by like honor rules, he could go and be in the tournament and be part of it, the next one. But it's not like a normal belt that you would win and then defend at pay-per-views and until somebody knocks you off. That didn't start happening until 1987.
And there's your history lesson for the week. Thanks, Mike Tenay. Lee Marshall.
Hey, call me Lee Marshall. Yeah.
As for this match, there's a great springboard bulldog that Chavo executed in this match. And then commentary is going to talk about at one point where Chavo grabs Pepe, and they thought he might have been hypnotizing Disco. Shivani is cracking up at Heenan's jokes and is trying his best.
He's corpsing so bad.
He's trying so bad. He doesn't want to give Heenan the satisfaction of it. But he does do it. And Disco Inferno is going to do a jumping pile driver for a 3 count. I give this 2.25 stars. I was shocked Disco won this match, and I was surprised by the fact that a jumping pile driver, which is not Disco's finisher, won the match, which is always nice to see when, to me, a jumping pile driver is one of those moves that, that could win a match, right? So for it to win a match, it's nice to see that you don't always have to use your finisher to win a match here. So 2.25 stars. I was pleasantly surprised by this.
I echo most of what you said. I gave it actually 2.5, and mainly because once again, a pile driver is a 4-leaf clover. You know what I mean? Like it's a rare thing to find. It's awesome. It's cool when you see one, especially in the current landscape of wrestling. I feel like there's only probably 3 wrestlers right now that maybe could be grandfathered in being allowed to do a pile driver these days, and that's really about it. I was surprised sort of that Disco went over, considering what we've seen of Disco lately. I mean, Disco just last week or 2 weeks ago was trying to join
for Disco lately too.
Yeah, exactly. It's like he was trying to get into the Wolfpac, and Conan basically squashed him in 20 seconds. But it seemed like there is a storyline for Disco as far as him entering the cruiserweight division. So maybe that's what's kind of going through this. It's also good to see Chavo as well. I feel like we haven't seen Chavo in a while, and he looked good putting Disco over.
This whole Thunder they've brought in a lot of people that we haven't seen in a while, and it's been a nice change of pace, I think.
But you know who we haven't seen is anybody in the NWO in a match. If you think about it, like who's been as far as what we've seen so far in all of our matches, there's been nobody. We saw Scott Hall. We saw Scott Hall walking to talk in the commentary booth. But other than that, we have seen no action from usually the consummate professional in Conan. So, and Stevie Ray, we'll see him later, but he's not in a match. But we'll talk more about that. I just thought that, you're saying like they're bringing up these people we haven't seen in a while, but I think the reason why is because it's been flooded a lot with Wolfpac and red or white and black and red and black, kind of shenanigans.
Bischoff is over in Japan right now, so maybe the rest of the NWO took the day off, so it's been all WCW. After the match, Juventud Guerrero is going to come out, and he's got a note. He's got Nick Patrick with him, of course, is the senior referee, head of the officials, and they have a piece of paper that says that there's that Disco doctored his weight, and they have a scale here to say he is actually. They said he's not going to weigh as a cruiserweight. He actually weighs heavier than that. Is their claim? So Disco's going to fight it for a minute, kind of hops on the scale real quick, gets off. They're going to finally get him to go on there, and it turns out he weighs 231 pounds, so he is not, in fact, a cruiserweight. And that reverses the decision because he wrestled a cruiserweight, and he's not a cruiserweight, Kyle. So that's disqualification, grounds for disqualification. Fucking Saturn beat Psychosis earlier tonight. Psychosis is a cruiserweight. Saturn isn't. How many fucking times the Giant squashed Silver King or fucking El Dandy or somebody, I forget who.
I think he literally had a match with all the cruiserweights.
And he fought Lismark.
Yeah, Lismark.
Like,
Lismark's kind of a bigger cruiserweight, all right? He's probably at the 222.
But it's totally absurd. Now, if this were a cruiserweight title match, like back when that Jericho was doing that story with Prince Iaukea and making him, weigh out stuff, the title on the line, okay, I'm all for it. Disco, you have to weigh 225 or less to be a cruiserweight to win the title. Fine. But a random match against another cruiserweight, like, this makes no sense to me.
Hey, Reese versus Juventud Guerrera. Okay, that's all I got. Hoovy, you should have you're the last person that should be throwing that shit, knowing that you've had to fight people way bigger than you in pay-per-view matches.
Yeah, just crazy. That said, after this, we'll get our fourth replay of the night. The Disciple is now wearing a vest that says OWN, so he is a disciple of the Warrior.
Which, by the way, is hilarious because I noticed he was okay. He's wearing a vest, and he turns around, and you have to zoom in on it because that OWN emblem is so fucking small. It'd be one thing if it was like big, I don't know, like spray paint or something like that, but spray paint's more like an NWO thing. But this thing was like stitched on and ironed on, and it was like, I mean, like, no joke, dude. It was like maybe like the size of like a smartphone or like a computer mouse or something like that. Like this little tiny thing on a vest where like there's no way anybody in the crowd knew what the fuck that was unless somebody had a camera on it.
Yeah, it was funny. You know what though? Give the Warrior a little, cut him a little slack. He didn't have much time to make that vest. He only, he just made the Disciple his disciple shortly there before.
So do you think he's skilled? So what we've learned so far is that in the past couple of weeks is that the Warrior does not enjoy meatloaf, maybe the singer or the food, and also he's good at iron-on patches in a pinch.
That he is. But what he's not good at, wrestling, which we'll find out.
We'll find out soon.
If you watch Halloween Havoc. After this, we're going to get Norman Smiley trying to get his revenge on Alex Wright, as Alex Wright said that, he was not the top-tier European athletes. Heenan is going to let us know that he had a friend who actually worked at a hotel in Salt Lake City. He was Norman the Mormon Doorman.
Dude, I thought you were going to use this for me, where you're going to be like the Mormon Doorman, Kyle Oakland. I was like, I was hoping you'd get that one, but I do appreciate the one you picked. But I always like to play the game of what's Kaiser going to call himself and what is Kaiser going to call me. So I always have like the names of everything, and you actually got me pretty good this week. I did not have what Alex Wright said on my radar for some dumb reason.
That is a dumb reason. But I just thought that was a clever pun that Heenan had here. Mike Tenay, though, he's going to be talking about the great chiseled wrestling body that is Norman Smiley.
Dude, both him and Tony got hard-ons for Norman's body.
Did you call him Tonay?
Tonay?
Like Tenay and Tonay.
Yep.
Heenan is going to continue to crack Shivani up during this match. Heenan was in pretty rare form, and Tony was he was doing his best Jimmy Fallon impression all night. That said, Norman Smiley does a swinging body slam a couple times during this match, and you might as well have assumed that they saw the jackhammer on water or something, because man, they were impressed with that swinging body slam. I'm not. Not a wrestler. I don't pretend to be one. I'm not, for me, a body slam, it would be a impressive move for me to do to most people. But I can't imagine that the swinging body slam is all that difficult to execute.
Oh, no. It's hard because what's happening, instead of just picking up and then using the weight to throw down, he picks up and then swings the guy around. That means not only are you the momentum of the guy's weight, you're swinging left to right, which means you also have to be able to change directions in mid swing. That's a lot of strength. Like I will say that I will not short sell that there's a reason why people don't do swinging body slams, because it is legitimately harder than a normal scoop slam. It looks silly as all fuck, but it is a pretty decent. It's kind of like watching Cesaro do the swing for like 50 times. Like, it doesn't look like anything that looks like crazy difficult, but it's fucking hard to do.
Well, you know, when you have a great chiseled body like Norman Smiley, you can do that. That said, Alex Wright is going to win this with he reverses a regular hold basically into a neck breaker. I gave the match 2 stars. I thought it was fine, but I didn't love the match. Like, I felt like it was probably better than I felt it was, if that makes sense.
No, I totally get it. I gave this actually a 1 3/4, and I couldn't give it any more than this. I wanted to give this a 2-star. The match was entertaining enough. I'm liking this new Alex Wright, even though I also do like the fact when he dances like a jabroni. But you know, this seemed like this is like the Alex Wright that I remember, where he's slowly starting to grow like a goatee, and he's getting a little bit more serious. But the crowd was not into this at all. There were some miscues. I believe once again we had the boring guy come back again. It was just, there was nothing really engaging to watch with this match, as much as both of them actually put on a decent show.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. After this, Stevie Ray's going to come out. And he says, all night he's heard the idiots here scream for the 4 Horsemen. And he says Eric Bischoff just called him on his cellular phone. And, told Stevie Ray to not let the Horsemen come out. And that he's going to hold them all off, which makes no sense to me because he's one man, they are 5.
Good old 5 Horsemen.
Yeah. Even if, it would make more sense if he brought out, a few more of the NWO with him. But no, just him. This is going to cut to backstage where Doug Dillinger is saying that he can't watch the Horsemen go to the ring. He can't see them go to the ring. And then he's going to turn his back to them. He got them by a technicality. And he's going to let them walk to the ring. Arn Anderson's going to use that tire iron on Stevie Ray. And then this is going to lead to a very interesting promo here.
No, awkward this is cringy. This doesn't age well whatsoever.
Does not age well at all.
No, what also I hope aged well? That fucking lady that was in the crowd. I don't know if you noticed this. I put a little picture because I'm a creep, and it was just like one of those like just kind of like swipe overs of just like kind of the crowd as they're making their way to the ring, and it's a bunch of just whatever people, and all of a sudden you just see some girl in like a sports bra or some like halter top, and I'm like, "What's up, girl?"
She kind of looked like Kimberly Page a little bit from that picture.
She looked like it's almost like it's one of those like people that's like it's almost so attractive that they were planted. You know what I mean? Yeah, like she wasn't like wearing like a t-shirt. She wasn't wearing.
You're saying these people in Norfolk, Virginia, can't look that beautiful?
I'm not going to say that out loud.
All right. So the Horseman's going to get on there. First, Arn's going to talk. He's going to say, Bischoff, you got one on us last week. Of course, referring to the arm wrestling match. He says, but we are a thinking man's organization, and he's going to say the WCW belongs to the Horsemen, and they're here to take it back. The mic's starts innocently enough, fair, solid, from Arm. Dean Malenko, ever the charismatic man, is going to get on the microphone. He's going to thank them all for, letting him join the Horsemen. Then, of course, he's going to talk about how Kurt Hennig, was offered this at one point and abused that privilege. And then they're going to hand the microphone off to Benoit, who says that Bischoff, the way he's been acting, he should change the first part of his last name.
And then also says that he goes on to say, I'm sorry, I'm actually reading the transcript. I pulled it up. There's actually a site that actually has this whole promo word for word what they said, and fucking Chris Benoit basically says like, by the way, Liz, as soon as you get done writing Space Mountain, just know that there's another E-Ride after this. And I'm like, yes. Jesus Christ, dude.
Yes, he did say that, and I'm glad you said that because I forgot what how he worded it, but he said something about Space Mountain, and I think the reason I didn't write it down is I wasn't sure what he meant by E-Ride, but to your point, he's probably just making another reference to basically he's gonna, he's there after Flair's done. Mongo's gonna get on the microphone next. He's gonna call Bischoff Eric Buffoon, which
clever
good one, yeah. Then he's going to talk about he's going to break into Bischoff's house and beat him in front of his family, which is
that took a dark turn.
It did
a little bit,
but not nearly as dark as when Flair gets on here, and he's going to then talk about how they've kidnapped Liz. She's tied up at the hotel, and then he mentions that we got the man of 1,000 positions over here, and says that he can take care of Liz later. All in all, I felt like most of that was they've got Liz kidnapped and they're planning on raping her and running a train on her.
Which is once again, I'm not saying once again, I don't speak ill of the dead, but Chris Benoit at least has at this point this kind of heelish attitude of he's already hinted that he's going to bang Liz at some point. But the fact that Flair kind of did this thing where he throws Dean Malenko in there, being the man with 1,000 positions, and you look at Dean, and Dean has this look on his face I don't want anything to do with this. I'm happily married. He's looking down, and I felt so bad because Dean Malenko is not the I'm the first in a riding up the train of Liz type of guy.
No, and I felt they're I know they're supposed to be the cool faces, but that's a little over the top, even for '98. And
even for Flair, because Flair can sometimes go off the hinge.
Well, and if they hadn't kidnapped Liz, if she kind of came with them and he made the comment she's going to ride Space Mountain tonight, okay, cool, yeah, him and Liz are going to hook up. But where they went with it and how she was tied up in the hotel room, and then basically they're going to pass her around, that was a little much. It was, and the thing is, you have to then Tony has to sell it off hey, look at these cool guys, and everyone else is cheering it, and even Tenay and Heenan are saying hey, I'm gonna go party with those guys after Thunder, and I'm Yep. That said, after the segment, we kind of panned to the crowd, and I was kind of looking at signs, and then I had to stop and rewind and reread a sign because it said this will be our 6th sign and I think our final sign of the night, and it says, "Nature Boy, you can't be the first, but you can be next." And when I first read it, I kind of just read it as a "you're next," oh, it's a Goldberg related sign. And then I stopped and I rewound it and I processed it, and it says, "Nature Boy, you can't be first, but you can be next." There's no Goldberg mentioned on there. There's no Goldberg symbols mentioned on there. And it's from an older woman holding up the 4 fingers of the Horsemen while she's holding the sign. So basically she's saying she's not a virgin, but she wants to ride Space Mountain.
I mean, who wouldn't want to, man? He's styled and profound, 14-time world champ.
That he is.
Well, I'm sorry. Well, at this point, he was probably the 14. How many more titles did he win? Was he already the 16th time at this point?
No, he wasn't 16 yet. I want to say he might have even been 13 at this point or something like that. 13 or 14, yeah. So after all of that, we go to our main event, Kyle. We got about 5 minutes left. Canyon, accompanied to the ring by Raven, kind of. Wrestling Goldberg, who is your champion at 144-0. We got about 5.5 minutes. Great. But first, a Goldberg DDP Halloween Havoc promo, which even Tony says they kind of snuck one in here on us. Raven is going to head to the commentary booth. Canyon's going to get on the microphone and say, "Who's better than Canyon?" And as soon as that happens, Goldberg's music hits, which I thought was good timing. Raven is going to then discuss on commentary while Goldberg starts to do his entrance from the locker room about why does Goldberg get all this special treatment? What about him? What about Raven? He says he doesn't see a package about an even flow, but he sees this one where there's about 50 diamond cutters in it. By the time Goldberg gets to the ring and Canyon gets back on the microphone to say, "I still didn't get to finish what I said. Who's better than Canyon?" Goldberg is going to then spear Canyon before the bell actually rings. We have 10 seconds left, just enough time for Canyon to get jackhammered then. And while Raven questions why he didn't get a rematch against Goldberg.
Which is a good point, by the way.
Fair point, yeah. Championship rematch, that should be in his clause of some sort. I gave the match a 1.5 stars. You rated a dud. They're both applicable, I think, here. I was really... I was really
I want a match.
excited.
I want to watch. Yeah,
I thought, Canyon could have given Goldberg something here. I know it's on Thunder, and I know Goldberg's going to win. But man, a spear and a jackhammer, and that's it. It was disappointing.
the only thing I can think of, and once again, it's a live show, is maybe they had a match, maybe they didn't. Maybe this was in the cards the whole time. They already had mentioned that looked like they're going into overtime. And they probably might have looked at this as, guys, we don't have enough time to have your match. So, which is a perfect formula if you're in a Goldberg match, because you can just easily just have Canyon just be a heel, talk some shit on the mic, take a spear to jackhammer, and we're out of time. We're out of here. So it's a perfect situation where you could get out of this with the crowd being happy, because the crowd just wants to see the spear and the jackhammer ultimately, whereas like the purists like you and I would like to see what a Canyon Goldberg match might actually look like, because that's not what this would look like. Jerry Flynn had better matches against Goldberg. Okay, so Canyon is going to
on a pay-per-view. This could have been a solid match for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I didn't want to rate this because obviously I would like to think that this wasn't really even a match. I mean, literally, the spear happened before the bell even rang, and then it was just a jackhammer. And I don't even think Goldberg had the title in his hand before they were already rolling the credits for the show being over. So it was just way too fast and just really not worth mentioning much, other than, like you said, it's just overall disappointing that we didn't get to see the innovator of offense offensing anything.
That's true. That said, Kyle, that is our Thunder. What did you think about this week's show?
So, for the fact that we had no NWO presence whatsoever, and I know that Halloween Havoc's coming up, and there really isn't much of an NWO angle as far as NWO versus NWO is concerned. Not that I'm aware of right now, so maybe that makes sense.
Other than Hall and Nash.
Right, but that seems much more of a personal feud than someone from the white and black taking on someone from the red and black. So I understand that there's a little bit of a divide with that. We only had Stevie Ray as far as anybody from either side of the NWO even being here, other than, I said, Scott Hall. But I feel like Scott Hall is such a weird place right now. Like, yeah, he's a member of the NWO, but like, is he really? Like, he feels like such a wild card lone wolf, which is kind of funny because that's what he puts on his trunks later on this year, I believe, where he kind of doesn't belong to any faction. He's kind of just like a floater with a drink. But yeah, like, it felt for 1998, this felt strange because there really was no NWO presence to be had. And I understand, once again, you got Hogan versus Warrior, you've got DDP versus Goldberg. Those are basically the two big storylines. I'm not saying that. I'm not going to say that Scott Hall and Kevin Nash.
Dude, Rick Steiner and Scott Steiner have been building since January, bro.
Right, and I think they finally said that it's going to be a no disqualification match, which that's a match I'd love to see, like how that match actually ends, because I don't remember that match all too well. But I think the other thing that's really confused me with this Thunder is, so Ric Flair's back, right? But Arn lost an arm wrestling contest last week on Thunder. Therefore, Flair isn't back. So then in what capacity is Flair in right now? Is he still technically just like he's back? I think
the idea here was he was able to show up because Bischoff wasn't around. But
okay, I see what you mean. So you're saying
yeah, I don't know whether he just can't wrestle officially because he lost that match, or if he's not supposed to be here at all, but they just they do what they want because Bischoff wasn't around.
Right. So, like I said, very, very interesting Thunder, because it was definitely a different formula than what we're used to. And once again, I think that has a lot to do with the fact that I think the storylines right now are a little bit different. We're now getting Hogan trying to get back into the world title scene after having, the Jay Lenos and the Karl Malones, but now he's got this other thing he's got to deal with, which at first felt like another DDP angle, but then it ended up because DDP brought in the Warrior. But now DDP is obviously doing his own thing for the world title. That now leaves finally this ultimate payoff of one of the greatest matches to ever exist in Halloween Havoc, Hogan versus Warrior. It was just really strange because, once again, it's not something we're used to. All the matches were kind of, I would say, middling to not very good. We had some surprise matches with Barbarian and Finlay, and then I think you and I both agreed that we felt like probably Disco might have had match of the night. with Chavo as far as from an entertainment standpoint and overall wrestling. So it was, I guess, what I would expect from the talent, but I guess the people that were on the show, it definitely felt like it was just all WCW, which was just very weird in '98.
Yeah, it is weird in '98. But I think this Thunder in general, I said it was okay. It was okay or all right. The big buildup this week was for the return of the Horsemen, on Thunder, all that. And we got it. But it was not the return I don't think anybody really was hoping for. I thought the matches were okay at best. We've had worse nights for wrestling, for sure. We've also had a lot better. I just think overall it was just okay. It was okay promos, okay matches, just okay. And that's all I can say about it. That said, that is our show this week. So if you haven't yet, given us a follow or, a subscribe on whatever your listening device is, go do it. Leave us that rating. Let us, get our reviews, bump us up with the charts so we can get more Thundercrap listeners out there. Of course, you always give us a follow on Twitter at Thundercraps. We'd like to interact with our fans, post a lot of interesting tweets throughout the week, and of course, maybe once in a while post a GIF or a screenshot from the Thunder we're reviewing for the week. You can always go to thundercraps.com for all of our previous episodes. That said, go check out Thunder 34. That is October 1st, 1998. If the formula continues, we're going to have a pre-tape show from Norfolk again next week. So we'll have to see how that goes. For Kyle Hoagland, I am Josh Kaiser, and we will see you next time on the Thundercraps podcast.
We are Eric buffooningly out of time. See ya.